the time, it was February 1980, and I always like to explain to people that winters there are long. It gets dark pretty early. I mean, I almost want to say about 4 o'clock p.m. and stays dark until about 7 o'clock in the morning. And the and again, it's really, really, really cold. And so, but fortunately, I was sitting in my truck I was on patrol at RAF Woodbridge, and I had a partner with me at the time, Keith Duffield. We were both airmen first class. And so it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we had certain buildings we had to check at certain times during the evening, and 3 o'clock was the East Gate check. So we went to the East Gate, we were checking it out, and the sky was, looking up in the dark sky, you could see it was cloudy. It wasn't clear that you could see stars or whatnot, but it was still dark. And so I went out to check the gate, to see if it was locked. And I had to get out the gate check, get out of my truck and grab onto the lock to make sure there's not a note from my supervisor. And then I got back in the truck and I put the truck in reverse and parked it over on that pad that I was talking about earlier, next to East Gate. And we're facing off base toward the North Sea. And I'm filling in my check sheet, and I'm saying, so after this base, where do you want to go? I mean, that's just what we talked about. And, so we were just kind of BSing. And then while we're talking and I'm looking straight out, I could see this light coming in from the North Sea, and it was coming in on a regular approach. It looked like the light was football shaped, and it was a big light. So I would have thought it was a cargo plane, something, a cargo plane. And then I started thinking about, well, the plane's coming in, since it's coming in from the North Sea, it was probably coming in from Germany. And I was thinking about having to do customs work, because that's one of the jobs we had to do. And I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. It's odd that a plane's coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning, but, to do customs work, that'll kill some more time so we can, make our night go by quickly. And I kept looking over this way to the left, and I was waiting for the blue lights to come on the runway. And kept looking and thinking, this is really weird. This plane's getting real close to the runway, and why aren't the lights going on? And then it was at, I'd say it was about maybe 100 yards away. I mean, it was like just right about where there was a fence line between off base and on base at the end of the runway, where it stopped and it just hovered. It was just, we're staring at it now thinking, okay, this is not a cargo plane. This is not, what the hell is this? And then it started making these geometric movements. It started going up, down, left, right. And then at that point, it kind of throbbed a little bit before it burst into 3 pieces and flew across in a low angle arc. It was about 10 to 20 feet off the ground, right by the runway. So it flew low before it disappeared into the night sky. And this whole event probably happened. It was probably from the time we saw it to it doing its geometric movements and whatnot. This was probably a space of 20 minutes, something like that. It was the geometric, that stuff happened. It was within 2 minutes. I mean, it was just so fast. It was kind of, I kept thinking, it needs to come back because I really need to process this. Because, and I really thought it would do a circle and come back, and But the problem I had was that it flew over the base, and uh, if something bad had happened on the base, something, whatever, and I didn't report it, I would get in trouble. And I'm just thinking, this is the last thing I need to do is report it, because Airman First Class Lori Rehfeldt does not have any credibility. The men hate me. It's really a lose-lose situation for me. And I ended up going. Yeah, I handed the radio over to Keith, and I said, Keith, no, or Duffield, you gotta take this. You gotta call him in. And then he said, no, you take it. You're the lead patrol. And I'm thinking, damn it. God. So I get on the radio, and the desk sergeant at the time, Alan Cohen, who was not, I, he wasn't very kind to me. He really wasn't. But recently, he did apologize for his behavior. He said, I really owe you one, because I had the ear to the flight chief, and I would say things about you, and you're really a nice person, and I'm so sorry for that. And
wow.
And I accepted his apology. Yeah, that to me, I said, that's all. That I appreciate that a lot. And so anyway, I started describing what we were seeing over the radio, and then Cohen said, police 4, get on or police 5, whichever number we were. He said, get on the landline at Eastgate. So I got on the landline, since we were right by Eastgate, and called. It was a direct line to the desk sergeant. So I picked it up and started explaining what we saw. And he was real quiet. He was like, okay. All right, Rehfeldt's seeing UFOs. I could hear it in the voice. And I was like, God, I hate this. So then he said something that made really good sense. He said, go to the air tower and check to see what they saw on their radar. Now, the technology back then, I don't think they had a way of recording anything. So the guy would actually have to be really awake and seeing what was on the screen. And when we got up to the air tower, I walked up these metal steps. Both of us walked. It was really cold, and knocked on this really hard door. Then I started kicking the door to get somebody to answer the door. And the guy comes to the door, and I could see I just woke him up. It was great. But I still asked him. I said, well, did you see anything, or do you have anything on the radar or whatnot? And he said, no. He goes, I didn't see anything. I'm like, yeah, because you were in the middle of REM. I didn't say that. I thought it. I was just so frustrated. And then he said, well, I think it was a sonic boom from afterburners of a fighter aircraft from a British base. I mean, we were an American base on a British base, but there were no British people on our base, but there were British Army, Air Force on other bases nearby. And I listened to what he said, but I didn't say anything, but it really pissed me off, because I was thinking, the sonic boom, that's noise, and the afterburners, the whole thing. And all I could think was that this made no noise. It didn't make any sound. It was just, and I was just so disappointed that he was sleeping and he didn't see it. I found out many, many years later, in fact, maybe the last several months, I was talking to Doc Rhodes, who happened to be the airman at the gate when I saw it. And he said he doesn't remember the chatter over the radio when I reported it. And then he said, but don't get me wrong, I was probably sleeping. I was probably dozing off. So I really can't blame the guy at in the air tower for sleeping. The only foolish people who weren't sleeping were me and Duffield, and trying to do the right thing.
Right. Doing your work.
Go figure. Yeah,
And then
but
oh,
when
go
I
ahead.
was walking back from thinking of this, what this guy had just said, I looked over to the right and was looking toward the North Sea, thinking about the aircraft that came in from there, just looking at it. But all of a sudden, I noticed it was day. It was daylight. I mean, it was a daybreak. It was the sky was sort of changed, like daytime's coming, and it took me many, many, many years to realize that we lost 2 hours of time. It was so seamless and smooth that we didn't, I mean, you know how you say, wow, time moves quickly, if you're busy or something like that. But this moved really extra quick. I mean, it was,
You mean time flies when you're having fun, and that's what you were having, right?
yeah, you got it. No, I was going to say that's all I wanted was to have fun, as a kid. And so, so I talked to some people about having lost time, and you were talking about DNA and all that. I was thinking, well, there is a possibility that we were abducted. And I said, yeah, who knows? Maybe they did take a few eggs from me. That's why when you mentioned it, I was thinking, because you don't know. I mean, I don't know. And I mean, the consciousness is something that now, if you go for a colonoscopy, they knock you out. And it's like a light switch went off. So they can do things like that, I guess. So I thought, oh my God, could you imagine they're trying to help the future people on the planet survive. So now they've got some of my eggs. I was thinking, oh my God, I was horrible at math. That happened, Christmas time. And the only thing that really gave that credibility was that Colonel Halt had seen it. I do believe it's an important piece of what happened there. I don't think it's the end all personally, because I, I'm a believer if you put all the pieces together, the story could be pretty complex. And I know several airmen to this day that their sightings or the experiences that they had there, to not include the UFO aspect of it, really affected them deeply, and um, and often in a negative way. There was really nothing benevolent about it. There was like an invisible war going on over there. There was no doubt. I mean, in my mind, I knew it. It was just
Well, expand
because
on that. Tell us what you think.
I just started, putting the pieces together. And every day, when I would go on the base, um, my stress level would be through the roof, and it was. I mean, I could feel the negative energy to the point where I knew that. I mean, I knew it that much, that there was a war going on, and part of the war had to do with the fact that we had nuclear bombs there. I believe that. They were also a high energy of. They have. It's one of the places where the lead lines really, really, really can, cross over. And I mean, the energy level at that base is ridiculously high. I think some of it has to do with what happened at Bobsey Bay. They were doing experiments, and I think they were all practicing things like making aircraft invisible. This is during the Cold War. We got a lot of money. Let's give contracts, scientists money to do stuff. And in one case, one of the experiments was Cobra Mist, and that was in 1970. And apparently, um, when there were many reasons. They said, well, like they couldn't control it, or they couldn't, the data they were getting from it wasn't reliable. But what they weren't talking about was that whatever happened there, it created a high pitched sound. And I believe when it did that, instead of um, researching what this happened, because they knew it didn't come from the equipment, they did that decision. But what they decided to do was to dismantle the project, which, it did this. We could have ripped a hole in the dimensions or whatever, but you know what? We really don't have answers, so we'll just walk away from it. And I do believe that there is this tear or a hole, and I do believe it's over near the East Gate where this negative energy is pouring through, and it's still there. I mean, people have UFO sightings there quite a bit. It's just, and I do believe if you're receptive to it, it will know you're receptive to it, and you'll have that. It'll be joyful.
It sounds
It'll be
like
a benevolent experience. Yeah. What credibility happened at RFI was the fact that it was a deputy base commander who was part of it. It wasn't just two airmen saying, "Yeah, we saw a UFO,"
Right.
Yeah, it was wild. No, it was two, especially one of them being a woman. Yeah, Rehfeldt seeing UFOs. Now, the fact that it was the deputy base commander, it's like, yeah, make fun of him. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's out of his mind. No, he wouldn't have gotten to where he got. And and that's why I ended up down the road becoming a major, because I'm like, no, I'm worth being listened to, and my story has as much value as anyone else.
Right.
And it was a remarkable story that I just think I need to share, and I do appreciate having this opportunity to share it. Well, as soon as I got off the bus, it was a coach bus that took us there, and we went past the gate guard, and all I could say was, "This can't be where we're stopping." I didn't want to stop there, but as soon as I got off the bus, my sponsor. They give you sponsors so you don't feel alone. She said to me, "Welcome to Cripple Creek." And I was taken aback, seeing all these dark green buildings and Quonset huts and with potbelly stoves in it that I found out later. I was, and then on top of it, I felt a heavy weight on me. And it was just like, something's wrong with this place. I mean, I felt it inside and out, and I just tried to brush it off because I was brand new into the military. I'd only got out of basic training. I was 4 months, barely 5 months into my military career. And so the last thing I wanted to do was feel this vibe that was really, would not have been good for me at that time to approach my supervisor or later on, or anyone, to talk about what I was feeling or what I experienced. I would have been railroaded out of the military. So anyway, so you can tell where, when you think you're all on the same sheet of music and then you realize that you're not, it really becomes difficult. And at the time, I didn't realize that most people were very, very sensing thinking type people. There weren't people that really were intuitive or sense things through their gut feeling of going into a place that you knew that it was dangerous and you didn't belong there. And it was as if the alarm bells went off for me. I knew it, but I just got there. So I had to, make the best of it. And when I first got to the base, I was probably at the weight that I am now, about 145 pounds. I mean, I'm 5'8", so, tall. And then over the next several months, my weight shot up to 160, 170. And I lost my stamina. And these were all I felt like it was external forces, like something in the atmosphere was causing me to physically change. And when my mom also came to visit, she walked right by me at the airport. She didn't even recognize me. And I thought, wow. Yeah. Oh no, Mom, it's me.
Wow.
I mean, really, it was just really kind of very depressing, very depressing. You
And
know,
then,
it wasn't where I wanted to be. Well, I put in my mind that the Air Force was better than this place, and I'm better than the way I'm being treated. You know, and like you said, this was not the spiritual, paranormal, or UFO experience that I was going through. You know, that started to happen more when I got to about. I've been there for about 6 months, and it's when I started getting bad feelings about different places on the base.
and
On
you,
top of it, we were drilled into us that we were in the most haunted county in the world. I mean, every time, and you got to watch out for East End Charlie when you're on Eastgate, and yeah, there was, the fog would roll in, and you can hear the foghorn in the distance, sounded like something off of a really, really scary movie. And you're out there by yourself at the end of the runway saying, "I'm not going to be scared. I'm not going to be scared." But we had guys that would shoot off their weapon just to get off of Eastgate. I mean, Eastgate. I kind of held it together of being scared, but there were some people that they had to, like a fight or flight feeling. They had to get out of there. Well, Rendelsham Forest was right behind. Pretty much, it kind of surrounded the end of the runway, and it really did it was a foreboding. If you're working on a midnight shift, it was just not comfortable. And I mean, one of my experiences that I had there, and most of the experiences that I had, because I worked swings and mids from 4 to 12 for 3 days, and then mids from 12 to 8 in the morning. So a lot of the events that happened seemed to have happened about 3 o'clock in the morning, or when it was really dark. When I left, whenever I would work at the base, and then I'd leave, and I'd go home. After I finally moved out of the dormitory. As soon as I was able to go home off base in Wickham Market, I always felt peace. I felt like, okay, I can deal with it, and then I'm going to turn around and go back there. But as soon as I got on the base, everything, the stress level again went way up, and it was just a tough time, and but and I fought it. It was also lonely. I mean, being a woman and living in the women's dormitory, which was about 30 women, and I was the only cop there, which is not a good idea, especially if I have to go into the women's dormitory and arrest a woman for having, say, a guy in her room. It was just kind of not fun, not fun. I believe Larry Warren totally. Um, because he felt the bad vibration of the place. I just really think that he had some friends that turned against him, and he's human.
yeah.
I totally. That's one thing that that's the problem with this UFO. The people who are in charge of this whole UFO experience. First of all, we need more women in the conversation. And some of the people that we consider the experts aren't experts at all. At all.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Nick Pope, and anytime he talks about what he talks about, he swallows hard. And I know he's uncomfortable with the fact that he's embellished his own reality. And it's unfortunate that I can't even watch those UFO shows on HBO and other things because he doesn't know what he's talking about. His dad got him the job at MOD, and his dad was a scientist. And this Linda Moulton Howe told me this. But I told her a long time ago. I thought that Nick Pope was there at during the 1980 time frame at MOD, and he never corrected me. I mean, I could have been mistaken, and I'm one to make mistakes, but he had ample time to correct me, and instead he kind of threw it back at me, saying that I said, "You were only 15 years old. I mean, and you're people calling you Fox Mulder. I mean, I actually told him he needed to get out of the conversation because he, I mean, he hasn't really talked about my experience. He really was part of that group that was acting crazy with Larry Warren. I mean, if it wasn't for Larry Warren, I would never have known that the UFO came back.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because I was on Netscape in 1996 or 97, and I'm just typing away, and I type in RAF Bentwater's memory lane of a place that was like hell to me, but let's see what's going on. Left at East Gate. And I'm thinking, oh my God,
Yeah.
who knows about it? Someone knows about East Gate, and East Gate was like a little ugly box. But the point was, it scared the hell out of people. The location of it. Left at East Gate. Oh my God. I mean, it just blew me away. I said, I got to talk to this guy. And I got to get the book. I got to get, And the parts that Larry wrote in that book were really good. And that's where I read that piece about as soon as he got there. I mean, he saw physically the base was really depressing looking. Even though by the time when he got there, they had a brand new bowling alley. And the base has gotten better. And the nice thing about it is that the British citizens who work in the chow hall, they will dress up as pilgrims during Thanksgiving meal. I feel like, didn't they leave? Didn't people leave because they were persecuted? I'm like, God love them. When I was at East Gate, I was sitting there and I had the sensation that there was this short person with a big gray head and with these, but they weren't big. It wasn't the big cat eyes. It was small eyes. I mean, and whatever it was, now this is where it's different from actually seeing with my eyes and listening with my ears. It told me in my mind, do not look back. Do not look back. Kind of, don't want you to worry. Do not look back, because if you look back, you're going to be scared, or I'm going to have to, I don't know, disappear real fast. I don't know. So I was just didn't want to be scared, and so I said, fine, I'm not looking back. I don't care. You can look at me all you want on the other side, because I was in a it looked like a phone booth with windows all around. So I'd sit down, so from my shoulders on up. Something behind me could definitely see me from my shoulders on up, and on the sides and in the front. And in the front I'd be staring straight at the runway. So yeah, I an experience like that, I just kind of rode with it. The second one was, and this one I actually saw this person. He was a full bird colonel wearing he was in his flight suit, but he didn't have his hat on. And the big deal about it is that if you're not on the flight line, you better wear your hat. Now the thing is, again, because these people were finding anything they could to pick on me, if I didn't tell this full bird colonel, who's like a notch under a general, to put his hat on, sir, you got to put your hat on. I would get in trouble. Rehfeldt, why didn't you tell him to put his hat on? And I felt like I would have wanted to say, well, you tell him to put his hat on. It was, and I'm just like stressing out over this, trying to say, I wanted him to put his hat on, dear God. And he's just kind of leaning back on some boxes that were in, it was on a like little driveway or a little pad that we can pull our trucks into, but it was right beside the gate shack, but people could also store stuff on this little pad. And so I'm just like, oh God, I kept looking down the perimeter road near at East Gate, looking to see if the patrol was coming, because then I knew if I saw them coming, I'd have to get to the colonel real fast. And then I turned back, and the colonel's gone. And I'm thinking, where'd he go? Now, there was a fence. There was no way he could go past me. I would see him. I mean, it was like an open area, but there was a fence on the side. So the only way he had the choice was to walk past me and make a right turn or a left turn on the perimeter road. And I mean, it was just like, this is really weird. And it took me a while to realize I had actually written something on a long time ago about my experience about this colonel. And it dawned on me that this colonel was actually Colonel Thompson. And Colonel Thompson had several weeks earlier been in he was at an air show flying an A-10, and apparently he flew too low, and his aircraft did like cartwheels across the trees, and then it blew up and he died. And his daughter actually read what I wrote back at that time, and she said, "You described my dad," you know. And I said, "Yeah, he must have been a real party animal." Yeah, he was. And I said, "In fact, he wouldn't wear his hat, right?" And she goes, No, that's my dad. He does whatever he damn well wants to do. I mean, he's leaning on the stuff, smoking a cigarette. Yeah, that's my dad.
Wow.
And so, at that point, I realized that, okay, now I can say I've seen a ghost of someone who looked really real. I mean, that one, I saw it with my eyes. Over at RAF Bentwaters, there was a gate called Ivy Lodge Gate, and I kind of thought that was a nice name. It sounds like a nice place to be. And behind it, not far off base, was this mansion. They had turned it into a place for the inebriate, and for anyone with drug and alcohol problems would go there. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but I did feel, again, intuitively, when I would go up to it was this gate, a fence that was surrounded by the LOX, LOX, which is liquid oxygen tanks. So we had to check at night, make sure the locks were locked at the LOX. Well, no, liquid. Anyway, that's the first time I ever said it like that. But when I pulled up to the gate, to the left was a fence, and if you go on the other side of the fence, you're off base. I knew there was a pond there, or a lake. There was a small body of water there, and I knew that someone had drowned there. And whoever it was, I call him the crazed man, and he would push his face up against the driver's side window. Now, keep in mind, we are over in England, driving on the left side of the road. However, we're in American cars, so we're still driving the way we're driving. So, which is fine by me, because I figure if I'm on the left side, I'll just stay on the left side. That was my logic. And so, but I felt this deathly white face with dark black hair all over the face. You could tell he'd been in the swamp way too long. And he was just trying to taunt the hell out of me, and it worked. So every time because I had to get out of the truck, physically grab onto the lock, mainly because the sergeants, the supervisor, would stick little notes behind it because they wanted you to get out of your truck to physically check it. And then I'd run back to my truck, jump in, turn on the engine, put it in reverse, and I would bat out of hell. I'm like, I'm out of here. And as soon as I got away from there, I thought, okay, I'm okay. But that would happen anytime I would go there at night. It was the same thing. And it wasn't until I went on to Google Maps, there was indeed a pond behind there. I mean, and I couldn't see the pond because it was all covered with growth. On the other side, it wasn't like somebody, kept it up. It was just, all you could see was like green vines and trees and that kind of thing. There was one thing, and I didn't mention this before, but another time when I was at Ivy Lodge gate, there was this wave, it took over the sky. It was a wave, and it rolled. But it didn't roll slowly. I've seen photos of it, but most people say, yeah, you can see it. It looks like a wave rolling across the sky. But this happened really, really fast. And I remember that scaring the heck out of me because I thought the sky was going to break open or something. And
this was in the fog or clouds?
no fog. It was in the clouds. It was up in the sky. It was up in the sky.
Would a meteorologist say, "Oh, that's just a type of low pressure front or a wave that goes across the clouds"? But
but there was this other thing going on, that there's a possibility that they were doing cloud seeding.
Oh, yeah.
So there was that.
But to make the clouds roll, that's something else.
Yeah, and it was, the strange part is that I was out there and I was staring at it. And I was just kind of thinking, does anybody else see it? Because it was just so bizarre. I'd only seen that once, and it was during the day. It was probably like 6. Most people were off base. They'd left for home, and working my swing shift. So that was one of the few experiences I had it when it was daylight. I've had recurring dreams. Most of my dreams start out, I'm over in England and I'm over at Bentwaters, and they want me to work a gate, and I keep telling them, it's like, no, I'm not an airman anymore. I'm a retired Army major. I don't belong here. But but I'm there, and they're making me work the gate, and I'm at East Gate, but East Gate looks really different. It's like you have to walk up steps to get to it. It's kind of like a tree fort almost, but we still had to wave people onto the base and whatnot. And I'm talking to some of the other airmen that I knew from back then. Now this is a dream, and I'm telling them, we don't belong here. Why are we here? And it was just. And then all of a sudden we were talking about the fact that of the UFO sighting that happened way back then, and then all of a sudden in my dream the sky turns into this grid. It kind of reminded me of the lights on a air traffic controller. The sky had turned into this grid, and you could see all these different aircraft, hundreds of aircraft floating in the air, just moving about, and thinking, what the heck, And then we had to go check some things, but the mantra kept saying was that it was like things like the war going on, the invisible war, was kind of showing itself in my dreams, and through the activity that was going on there. And then in my dream, it would take me down to, I'd be on a desert road, and I'd be heading into the desert, and I come upon this blue aqua pond, and it's about 3 feet deep, and I'm putting my feet in it, and it's like white sand under it, and I kind of taste it, and salt water, and and it's butted up against this mountain, this dirt mountain, and I keep having this dream. And then one day I get a complimentary copy of National Geographic magazine. Complimentary, meaning I didn't order it. And inside this magazine, I think it was 1996, I actually found the actual cover of it. So when I was doing a presentation for UFO Congress, they could see the actual magazine in the picture of the pond that was in my dream. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is my pond. I need to know where this place is. And I found out it's in Mexico. And in Mexico, then I find out that it's very close, within 50-mile radius of the zone of silence. And now it's like, this is getting really freaky, because there were a lot of frequency experiments going on over England. Then you get the lead lines, you get all this, a lot of energy, a lot of negative energy, but it's like a lot of energy. And then you got this place that's in my dream that is also high UFO activity, and having no frequencies. If you drive your car through there, you get your radio to work or whatnot. I don't even think Sirius XM works. I don't know, but just so I started reading. I'm like, what are the connections with these? There is definitely a connection between these places. Then I find out that over in England, over at Bentwood, actually near Woodbridge, there's this place called Sutton Hoo. Because over the past several years, I've got to the feeling, and it's not because I drive a Subaru, but I got the feeling that how do you put it? Pleiades
Yeah.
is has something to do with it. And over at Sutton Hoo are these mounds that are actually, and it's maybe less than a mile from Rendelsham Forest, and they're connected to. They look like the constellation or the star cluster of Pleiades. Now, over at the Zone of Silence, there are these tall, blonde people walking around the desert, helping people if they get lost. These Pleiadians walking around, helping people. I guess they're like Boy Scouts. But there are three of them. The number seems to be three for a lot of things. Even when my aircraft did the Holy Trinity, up, down, left, right, three pieces. Three is a big number. And so these three people, two men and a woman, they're out in the desert helping people. And so there's that connection. And then apparently if you start intersecting different lines between these places, you find there's a connection between the Zone of Silence and the Bermuda Triangle, and then all of a sudden you start realizing that there are also intersects with the pyramids, and before you know it, you realize that the people that came from Atlantis are part of the whole thing. I mean, it's just for me, I've just been exploring this, the pieces that I have and the pieces that I've read from others, and I start seeing these connections. And but the hardest part that I have too is often when I post something on my Twitter page or on my Facebook page, I'm really asking for people to help me understand. Because they can have they could say, "Oh, Lori, that's this." I mean, I get that sometimes, and I love it. I'm thinking, "Thank you." Let me read, because I really, I really need to understand. I mean, there's the thing with the. I don't know if you saw the picture I posted on Twitter with the triangle and the three circles. That's something that I want people, anyone who knows geometry, remember, didn't do well in math.
Yeah. Well, it's probably some sacred geometry of some sort.
Yeah, but I'm kind of thinking that these people from other planets are math seems to be the language of choice. It's something to.
It's a universal language.
Yeah, except for me. I just hope that people will look at faith and look at intuition as real, if not more than what we're seeing with our eyes and what we're smelling and what we're hearing, that kind of thing. Because when I was at the Gate Shack inside the non-nuclear munition storage area, NMSA is what we call it. They would lock it. I would be locked into this area, and I put my alert bag down. We had an alert bag that we carried, a really heavy flak vest and helmet and gas mask, and we had to carry all these things and a nightstick. We weren't allowed to use mace over there. We had to use a nightstick, which we ended up hitting rocks with like a bat. But I had to settle in. And then as soon as I was ready, I had my building check sheet, and I was heading over to check the building was on the weapons storage area, and all of a sudden I had a flash of this 7-8 foot praying mantis that was walking on two legs, really, really muscular. I mean, he must have really worked out. And yeah. And he told me, he just said, in my mind, he said, don't go. And I said, okay, because I knew the flash told me exactly where he was. He was over near the fence line, near the Rendelsham forest, and he was pacing back and forth. And I'm thinking, okay, he's got a lot on his mind. I am not one to get in the way of a giant praying mantis. But it scared the hell out of me because I couldn't tell anybody about it. Now, this is something that I kept buried for the longest time because I was embarrassed by it. I'm thinking, what are people going to say when you say, oh, yeah. But now it's interesting because why is it people, if they say want something, they'll say praying mantis. It wasn't like I said an ant. I saw a big ant, or I saw a spider, or, Yeah. So that to me really corroborates it, because it's, I wouldn't normally pick a praying. I don't see very many praying mantises around. But when I saw this one, it was like, scared the hell out of me. And I went back to my gate. I said, I'm not leaving this gate shack until it's daybreak. So I was sitting there listening to my music, and I was listening to the Broadway soundtrack of Annie. The sun will come up tomorrow. But I couldn't tell anybody. I would have loved to have felt safe and comfortable to tell my flight chief what's in there. But that's the other problem too, is that people want concrete facts. And it dawned on me recently, and I wrote this. I said, the problem with that is, look at the way we treat what we call aliens from Mexico. What do we want to do? Half the time we want to throw them in a prison and, or kill them. What happens when you start talking about aliens from another planet? The first thing you think of is Star Wars. People always go down this road. So why would any of these beings want to come out and say, yeah, we're here and we'll talk to you about it. We'll take questions. We can have a press conference.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way. We are so barbaric. There is no way that any of them would come out. I just kind of think that the big reason they were there, or so close there, was because I think there'd been a lot of bloodshed over the hundreds and hundreds of years in Suffolk County on top of everything else. And I think the paranormal was quite high. But I also think that it's not that we're not ready because we're afraid. We're not ready is because we would want to kill them. And I think they don't want to be killed. And so, if they did find bodies at Roswell, what happened? They were dead. Chances are they probably want to do experiments. It seems like people, until we treat animals with dignity and respect.
Right.
So, that's why the big questions come up lately since that disclosure of getting all this information out. And the bottom line is, we're not ready because we're going to kill them, or we're going to start something that we have no business participating in. Because I do believe they are definitely way ahead of us. I was a nervous little kid, for one thing, very, very sensitive to my environment, and to the point that my sister, who slept on the bottom bunk, would have to hold my hand so she could okay, I know you're scared. And she raises her hand and she holds it until I fall asleep. And because I was really afraid of, there was a demon in the basement, I swear. And in fact, when I was about 14, when my mom and dad were going through a divorce, this voice started laughing from the basement. I could hear it with my ears, to the point that I got up and I had a babysitting gig to go to, and I said, "I'm out of here. You can laugh all you want." It was really, really frightening, and I do believe that historically, the property that my father's house was on, everything is named on Long Island is named after Indian names like Moriches, Syosset, Ronkonkoma, different places. And we were in Nesconset. So I believe in my heart that there must have been some bloodshed or something happened there. And whatever this evil thing was there. And sadly, I can pick up more evil things when something's not right as opposed to something happy, which is really disappointing because I'm really an optimist at heart. When I was in third grade, I was walking we were walking through the main area. I went to Catholic school, and to the right was the all-purpose room, and it was there when I was walking in my line. We were all walking like little soldiers. I guess they were getting ready for me to go into the Air Force. And I looked to the right into the all-purpose room, and that's where I saw Mary, the mother of Jesus, and she was up on this on a pedestal surrounded by flowers, and she was so lifelike. It was amazing. And then when I passed the second set of double doors, she was gone. And we had our gym class in the all-purpose room, and I was kind of sneaking around, checking to see where they put that statue. And I went home and I told my mom, and she immediately called up my grandma to tell my grandma that I had seen, I had a vision, and I was just a 9-year-old kid, so I was thinking, okay, I guess I did. My mom came to visit me when I was in Ireland, and this was probably actually the first time that I realized how intuitive my mom was, in the sense of I didn't say a word to her about my feelings of being at Bentwaters, and I'd been there for about a year when she came to visit. And as soon as we got away from the base, she said, "I got to get you out of here. There's something wrong with this place." And I knew that, and I didn't tell her. I didn't share my feelings because I was kind of trying to show off the place. It's like, "Mom, look, we have to stop to let the airplane drive by." But my mom, when she did come visit me, she wanted to save me from the place. She said, "You got to get out of here. There's something wrong with this place." And it was then that my mom, I realized she could feel that the atmosphere was off. When I went into the military, I was initially supposed to go to the School of Visual Arts in New York City for film studies. And they didn't have a dormitory, so there you go. And Mom couldn't afford to send me back and forth on the Long Island Railroad. So I don't know, I thought about this kid in high school, and I said, well, let me check out the Air Force. And I ended up picking law enforcement because I thought it'd be Charlie's Angels and something really exciting and fun. So I started training, and the sergeants there, everyone was like really, really negative and sarcastic, and just, I'm trying to make the best of it. Like, yes, Airman Rehfeldt reporting as ordered. And they're like, "Rehfeldt, sit down. Rehfeldt." And I'm thinking, I don't think I'm making a good impression here. And the only the only thing that would be is that often when they get my orders before they see me. So the biggest problem at that time back in 1978 is what they saw was, "Oh God, we got a woman coming, she's gonna be a pain in the ass," because that's what they thought. Mm-hmm. I mean, I literally heard from them, women, you should be barefoot and pregnant. I'm 18. I want to be barefoot or pregnant. I'm sorry. Not yet, but.
And how many other women were on the base, do you think?
We had, I would say, about women that were active duty, yeah, active duty women living on the base were about 30.
And how many men were on the base? Thousands?
There were over, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000. I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
okay.
we were, I mean,
Crazy.
there were women that were wives that were,
Right.
and sometimes the husband would say to me, well, we're having a problem with, my wife doesn't like the idea that I'm working midnight shift with you. And I'm like, well, I don't like the idea that I have to work a midnight shift. So shut up. But I knew I had to be careful because I could tell that the squadron commander really didn't like me. I mean, I wave him onto the base and he wouldn't even, he looked straight ahead. He wouldn't even look at me, acknowledge me. And it was like, well, that's a fun feeling to have. Or people that were working in the back office, they got to go to a room where there was heat and we were stuck outside where, I mean, it got really literally cold and we were outside having to deal with the weather conditions, and the gate shacks weren't always up to par. But that was the road I was on. It didn't matter if it got worse or good or whatnot. It was just things weren't going to change. And because I would do soul searching, trying to figure out what can I do to make it right. And there was nothing I could do. It was a systemic hierarchy that was run by men, so it was very much a hyper masculine situation, and I could dress the part of being soldier or airman, but when it came to wanting to go out and fight or do something like that, I would rather talk through an issue than start using my hands and fighting or getting the crap beat out of me. It just isn't in my psyche. And then you'd get yelled at, Rehfeldt, where are your white gloves? I'm like, what white gloves? You didn't issue me any white gloves, that kind of thing. And in fact, there was one story where I lent my gloves to another airman on another flight. And a flight is like a platoon, just to let you know. And the sergeant, who was actually my supervisor at the time, said, Rehfeldt, where's your gloves? And my hands were turning red. It was so cold. But I wasn't going to say anything to say, whine or complain, because that was the last thing I needed to do. So I told him, I said what I did. I lent him. And he just looked at me and kind of like a little Nazi, because he had his little gloves on. And I really hated his guts. It wasn't about to offer, well, I'm in a warm vehicle. I don't really need these gloves. I could lend you my gloves. He didn't lend them. I didn't ask. So, I left it at that. Then the wing commander, the highest ranking individual on the base, comes through my gate and he looks at my hands and he hands me his gloves. And they were pilot gloves. It was so cool. And I said, sir, I saluted him and, reported my post all safe and secure. And I went back to the desk and told him I had these gloves and that the wing commander, the highest ranking guy on base, lent them to me. And the next day I get a pounding on the door and bam, bam, bam. Rehfeldt, the squadron commander wants to see you. I'm like, about what? And to see the squadron commander, I mean, scared the heck out of me. So I went to see him, and he first said, Rehfeldt, why did you stop the wing commander and borrow his gloves? And I said, that's not what I did. I'm thinking, why would I do that? I said, yeah, that's what I did. I decided to go up to the top of the chain of command and say, sir, I don't have gloves. I need your gloves. Give them to me. So I was so furious. A friend of mine, Katie, who was an electrician on one of the helicopters for the 67th ARRS, I said, Katie, will you go with me to the wing commander's house? Because he just lived around the corner from us. So we walked in. I'm kind of nervous about it. But I was so upset because I was being really, really ostracized, but treated, like I was a piece of dirt. And I knocked on the door. I said, "Sir, I want to say this. Thank you for lending me these gloves. You, I appreciate it. My hands appreciate it." And I said, "I just want you to know, though, I don't know why I told him this, but I felt like I'd tell him anyway." I said, "I just want you to know that I got in trouble for it, and I didn't mean if it came across that I was jumping the chain of command and taking the gloves." And apparently, he must have gotten back to them, to the squadron commander, and I didn't hear a word about it. However, that didn't help me with my relationship with the squadron commander. He probably, made it worse. Something that is so minute shouldn't even get on the radar.
Well, you're a woman. You're a woman.
Yeah.
Was there like many occurrences like that where it's just like these little things that got almost like overinflated that just seemed to be like you hit the wrong side of the coin? Was there like many situations like that occurred?
Yeah. It was
the daily occurrence.
Yeah, I mean, a few weeks later, I'm not wearing white gloves because I wasn't issued white gloves, and they said, "No, you need Rehfeldt." So it's my fault that I didn't get something that they were supposed to give me. So it was everything was that way, and I just knew that. I mean, initially when I first got there, I was working the main gate and waving cars on the base. And at that point, I would say, "Hey, how long do I have to stay out here? Because I'm getting kind of bored." And they said, "Yeah, for the next 4 more hours." So it got to a point where, I couldn't whine or complain. I realized that whining and complaining is not going to get me anywhere. And I just pretty much did what they told me to do. It was like, suck it up. I remember when I finally left Bentwaters in December 15th for good, I was thinking, I am getting out of here. I'm escaping this place. I was like so excited. But on the other hand, what I realized is that I didn't really resolve any of what I went through. And I really needed to talk to somebody about it, but didn't have anyone to really talk about. So when I got to my following base, which was at the time Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, it was like a reprieve in a way, but I really think I was damaged. And I got there, and some of the people, first of all, this one lieutenant went up to me and started telling me, she said, what are you wearing? Because my uniform, crawling through windows and different things, sitting on a chair with a loose spring, I'd rip my pants, and the women's pants cost more than the men's pants, so I would go buy the men's pants. So I ended up kind of changing my uniform, and they're like, what are you wearing? You can't wear that. And I'm like, fine, I'll straighten up my uniform here. But I looked at her like, you don't know where I've been. I really felt like I had just gotten out of a war zone.
I'll say this: we definitely want you to come back and continue sharing, because we didn't even touch on a few topics that we wanted to touch on. But yeah, since we are running out of time here, I'll just wrap it up and say thank you very much, Lori, for being here. And please do return. We'll contact you because we still have so much to talk about. I appreciate it. I enjoy the company and the camaraderie here. Yeah.
I think you guys are great. And you go by Adam? Is that your name?
Yes, that's my name's Adam. Yeah.
I didn't think I should call you like, hey, Trimac, come on.
Adam.
Well, I appreciate you getting a hold of me and talking to me. And it's just, for me, it's just a nice way. It's very therapeutic for me, actually.
Yes, we want to give you more therapy. So we'll have you back.
I need it.
Yeah. Well, Lori, it's always a pleasure. And again, you're going to be on again because we love you. It's great to be on.
I love you guys too. I really do.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it fills my heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, mine is now full too.
All right. We're having a love fest group hug.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we will definitely be in touch.
Okay. Bye-bye.